Hello and welcome to post-match reaction to the Blues versus the Waratahs. It finished 32-29 to the Blues. That's 4 wins on the trot for them, the first time they've done it since 2011. So massive win for the Blues and for their season to keep it going. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for predictions and opinion. The Tars started off with an early error, kicking out in the full, which obviously didn't help them. And then from that territory, the Blues got themselves a penalty and went 3-0 up after 2 minutes. Interesting to see them take the points there, something that they did that the Tars weren't going to do later on. Then the Blues just absolutely dominated the Tars for the next sort of 15 or so minutes. The forwards really put the beat down on, especially at the breakdown. And were really bullying the Tars impressively. First off, Tom Robinson went over out wide, and the kick went through to make it 10-0. And I say, the Blues really were dominating that breakdown area. Even when the Tars got the ball back, because the Blues lineup wasn't functioning at 100% by any stretch of imagination tonight. They just turned the ball over again at another breakdown, and the Blues were able to march down the pitch. In that first 15 minutes, there were something like 4 penalties to the Tars. By the Tars. And when you consider that the game finished with 7 penalties each, that is a large amount of territory and possession just being given away by the Tars. And most of those were for not rolling away, not releasing a player. The referee told the Tars that. And the Tars altered their game plan after that and stopped that happening. But before they managed to do that, Caleb Clark took a ball off Nonu and went and scored under the sticks to make it 17-0 after 16 minutes. Over points, about Blues at that point scoring at point a minute, and it looked like it was going to be an absolute beatdown by them. The Tars, though, cleared up their act. They listened to what the referee had told them. They changed how they played, and they stopped giving away penalties, which was a big thing. And they started fronting up at the breakdown as well, which gave them. They then pretty much took control of the rest of that first half. So the hi Steve, thanks for joining us. Who was the Blue 12? Yes, it was Nonu who was the Blue 12, and yes, he had a very good game today, controlling things, being a nice steadying influence for the team. And he and also made a couple of not only did he score a try, which we'll talk about later on, but he also created some tries as well with his passing. So he was the guy that gave it to Clark, for example. As I say, the Tars took control after about that sort of 16th minute try by Caleb Clark, because as I say, they listened to the referee and they adapted, which was clever. The Tars kicks that they put up that Flower got to near to contest were very good. The problem was that the Tars were kicking too long too often and were missing out on those at that point. Interestingly, that on 23 minutes the Tars decided to turn down 3, go to the corner. The line-out more was stopped, they had an advantage, so Foley put the crossfield kick in, Flower collected it, and it was try time at 17-7. The Tars then basically just camped in the Blues 22, and it took them another 14 minutes before they could score again. They were just unable to get over that Blues line. The Blues put in a real big shift at that point, and a very good defensive effort from them. Eventually, though, it paid off, and a line-out maul on 37 minutes meant that it was 17-14 going in at half-time. The Blues, in that last sort of 20 minutes of that half, just couldn't get out of their own half. They just couldn't exit and couldn't get downfield. As I say, in that first 15 minutes, the way they'd been travelling down the field was penalties that had been given to them, and so they were being gifted territory. Once that was taken away, they just couldn't get downfield, and that meant the Tars, the pressure eventually told. Come into the second half, and the Blues again take 3 points as soon as it's on offer, taking themselves out to 22-14, making it that important 8-point gap. So 2 scores rather than 1, and that was going to be key to this game throughout or to especially that second half, having that 2-score lead. The Blues went back to what they'd done in the first half, early in this first half. Great ball retention. They went through 14 phases before they scored that try, with TJ Fiani bashing over in the end to score it. So lots of good patience, lots of work by those forwards, trucking it up. The Tars did come straight back come back into it. Again, Folau and Foley both heavily involved with it. Again, they camped in the Blues half after the restart. The Blues just couldn't exit, and eventually the pressure told, and the Tars scored another try. It was this point that it was clear that the penalties were going to be key in this one, even if only for moving the Blues up and down the pitch. Nonu then scored. There was a line out by the Tars. Nonu and Rico Iwani and a few other players were up very quick into Folau, Beale, and another player after that. And the passes under pressure didn't stick. Rico picked it up, put on the gas, fed it to Nonu, and Nonu went over under the sticks. 29-19, that was straight after the Tars scored. And it was important that the Blues kept on scoring back to keep that gap opening out to that 2-score margin. It meant that the Tars were always having the scoreboard pressure against them. But they also went for 3 points on 63 minutes. Again, another high ball that Nanai went up for, knocked on, and the scrum half, who had been replaced on blankers too, it was a knock, collected the ball in an offside position, meaning it was a penalty, but he did the right thing. There was absolute chaos. If he hadn't collected that ball, it could very easily have been 7 points. So I think he did the right thing at that point, collecting that ball, giving up the 3 points rather than the 7. To me, in that case, though, that was one of those situations where Folau got up, two players got up to challenge Nanai. One of them actually had a decent chance of getting the ball. Folau didn't. He jumped from a long way away. Now, the collision with Nanai wasn't going to tip him over, but it was enough to put him off, and he was definitely jumping at the player rather than going for the ball. But it wasn't called, and so it's legal as far as the referee is concerned. The Blues brought their strong carrying back. Again, the phases, but Ikiri Iwani just knocks on after breaking the line, gets stopped just short, knocking on, and then tries to reach over. But it's, he gets caught for knock on. But because of they were under advantage, they went back for it. I think it was a high tackle, and that meant that Terry Black could knock over another 3 points to again open that gap back out to 2 scores. 75 minutes though, and after there'd been one scrum set in midfield where the attack broke down, and Harry Plummer went with the ball for 2 hands and knocked it on. I know that the Tars were asking for a penalty for that one, but for me, the other player had already overrun the ball and wouldn't have caught it. To me, so that wasn't stopping anything from happening. The pass would have gone to ground anyway. So to me, I'm more than happy with that. So just being a knock-on, because I say both hands went towards the ball, and he was trying to pick up what was a very poor pass, to be honest. But then off that scrum, Tom Robinson, who has had a fantastic season so far, really good player, but he showed his inexperience here and got it wrong. He stayed scrummaging when there was a blind side with just one player. It was 1-on-1 on the blind side. The scrum half goes around that side, and suddenly it's 2-on-1, and he just walks over untouched. Tom Robinson had to be more aware, had to be the man that would get off that scrum quick to create it 2-on-2 and have some chance of defending it. And that made that suddenly it was 32-29 with 5 minutes to go, and you're thinking, okay, are the Tars going to come back into this? Are we going to see the fragility that we've seen in the Blues in the past come on here, or can the Blues close this one out? And that's exactly what the Blues did here. They closed this one out. They got hold of the ball, they set their pods, and for a good 3+ minutes, it was just out to a pod, bash it up, out to a pod, bash it up, out to a pod, bash it up. Sometimes they got over the gain line, sometimes they didn't. It didn't really matter. They didn't care where they were going. All they cared about was getting enough players on from the next pod so that they would secure the ball. There were no knock-ons. The players executed extremely well, and in fact, picked up a penalty at the end there, which the Blues, rather than going for posts and maybe getting bouncing it off the post, they quite rightly just kicked it out to make it a 32-29 win for the Blues. And say they're fourth on the trot, which is a fantastic result for turnaround for them, or for my team. So yes, great result there. Just a couple of comments about the actual game, about the conditions. Yes, it had been raining in the morning. It rained heavy last night up here in Auckland, so the ground was a bit wet. So we saw a couple of players slip here and there. And Nonu, for example, dived well before the line and slid over. Very clever from him to do that kind of that kind of play, especially as we saw the last weekend where Stockdale decided that he wasn't going to slide in, and apparently he might have a bit of a phobia of diving in for tries, and he went and dropped the ball over the line. No issues or thought that that might be happening to Nonu. Some stats that kind of jump out at you: clean breaks, 6 by the Blues, 10 by the Tars, but they still couldn't finish it off. I mean, this finished what was it, nearly 4 tries each, but they couldn't. They couldn't finish it off because turnovers hurt the Tars 16-10 by the Blues, and I say especially in that first 20 minutes, they had no control at the breakdown. The Blues line out, we talked about it stuttering earlier on. They lost 3 lineouts out of 15. Whereas the perfect one from the Tars, and even when they did win it, it wasn't always clean ball either as well. Tackling from both sides ended up being pretty good, both in the 80s, and as I said earlier, 7 penalties to each team. Some of the players that kind of stood out, and players that are always going to stand out: Rieko Ioane, Nonu, as we said, had a very good game controlling. As well, Terry Black did actually pretty well this time, and it was that loose trio. I was going to say Robinson, Gibson, and Ioane. Gibson got injured. Looks like a very bad knee injury early on, and Dalton Papiali'i came on instead. But those 3 worked very well together in this game for the Blues. Defensively, also Patrick Tuipulotu. Sorry, yeah, he also got over the gain line. Had a game, or at least a Blues high 9 tackles. Actually, sorry, no, TJ Fiona got through 10 in the backs there. So those players all were influential, even if some of the stats perhaps don't add up for them. On the Waratahs side, as always, you're talking about your Foleys. Folau got through 16 runs with the ball in hand. That's the most of anyone in for the Tars. We saw a lot of Hunt, whereas didn't really hear much about Newsom or Adam Ashley Cooper. Didn't really get through too much in this game. In the forwards, initially the loose trio really got seen to, but was it them or was it the kind of your tacklers who weren't rolling away rather than the clearer actually thinking about it? So you're looking at your Johnson Holmes, your Fitzpatrick, your Kepu, i.e. your front row, all put in big shifts today, 12, 13, 12 tackles. Those kind of guys weren't rolling away. Simmons, Dempsey also got through some work, as did Wells. But Staniforth came on for 21 tackles. That's a crazy amount. None missed. Congratulations to you, sir. And if we look at that, defending as those players that got pinged for not rolling away, yeah, Kepu, Hannigan, Simmons, or Johnson Holmes, all those players giving up penalties, as we were talking about in that opening quarter. So the Blues, made hay whilst the rain shined very well, and then basically used the scoreboard to keep the pressure on the Tars. There were times when the Tars, as I say, turned down 3 easy 3 points, went for the corners. Most of the time that worked. If not straight from a line-out ball, then through the secondary play afterwards. But still, that scoreboard pressure was on the Tars the whole game, and that really forced their hand in a lot of measures. So, congratulations to the Blues! Fantastic win. Let's see if find a table that has been updated with where they stand now. So with those 4 wins, they're now on 19 points. They've still got a game in hand over the Hurricanes and the Crusaders. So if they win their next game, that'll put them on 23 points. the same number as the Hurricanes. A try bonus point will put them ahead of the Hurricanes. That is wonderful territory for the Blues. They've not been in that territory, into that kind of territory before. Currently, they're in a wild card position for an away quarter final, and they're clear of both the Highlanders and the Chiefs. So 5 points ahead of the Highlanders, and 7 points ahead of the Chiefs, who've both only got two wins each, compared to the 4, by the Blues. So in a very strong position at the moment. As I say, as on the was the Waratahs, still sat in second place in the Australia Conference on 16 points, 2 points behind the Rebels, who are playing right now, which will be their 7th game to catch up. So the Rebels have got a game in hand, and also 2 points ahead already. With a game in the Sunwolves now, you'd expect them to spring out to 6 or even 7 points ahead, comfortable in that conference. With the Reds only 2 points behind the Waratahs. Overall, the Waratahs are holding that last place in the last wildcard place, 8th. Overall, Blues in 5th for wildcard. So let's watch the Rebels versus Sunwolves. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Down there is my Patreon, where you can support me to bring this free content, and also get exclusive access to other videos and articles that I write over there that's only for my supporters that are on Patreon. And over there and down there are 2 videos that the YouTube algorithm, or not algorithm, what am I talking about? Artificial intelligence, says you'll absolutely adore. So give those a look. If you're watching live, thank you for joining me live. The links are all down below in the notes.